Okay. Mr. Dare, can you hear us?
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good.
Andy believes Lexus is.
Yeah, we're just waiting for Ms. Hill. She's walking in, and then we'll get our meeting started. Is tech, everybody ready in tech, Sonia?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Good morning, everyone. I will call to order the Truckee Meadows Water Authority Board of Directors meeting for Wednesday, February 15th. Madam Clerk, we'll start with a roll call, please.
Hartung,
Here?
Dare,
Here.
Anderson,
Here?
Dewar,
Here.
Hill,
Here.
Here.
Breckus,
Here.
Zimmerman,
Here.
Paletta. You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
Thank you so much, Madam Clerk. Mr. Reese, would you lead us this morning in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You know, those of you online can't hear the booming bass in the background. It's truly amazing, Andy. You just bring up the bottom, which in any good orchestra, you gotta have a bottom. It's what holds it. It's really, and I say that with all sincerity. It's not pejorative. It's amazing to hear you in the background. The voice of Tumwa is in the room. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
Not at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I will close public comment. I will bring it back to the board. Possible comments or acknowledgements? Anyone this morning?
I'd just like to say hello.
Mr. Dare, welcome.
Hey, it's good to see everyone's face. Sorry I can't be there in person yet, but I will be, and just a matter of time. So good to be here and good to get back to business with y'all.
Well, we're glad you're with us in some form, and you are in our thoughts and prayers. Godspeed on your fast recovery. We look forward to having you here very soon.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Item number 5, approval of the agenda. Is everybody comfortable with the order in which things will happen and what is on the agenda?
Second.
Have a motion by Reese, second by Dewar. Madam Clerk, is there any public comment?
Not at this time.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That takes us now to item number 6, approval of the minutes for January 18th. Are there any emendations to those minutes? Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Have a second by Dewar, have a motion by Dewar, second by Hill. I'm assuming that there is no public comment because I have no cards. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That takes us now to item number 7, public hearing. Consideration of written bids and consideration of possible oral bids of surplus property and discussion and possible action regarding the approval of sale or other disposition of surplus properties consisting of approximately 4.44 acres in Washoe County, Nevada, generally referred to as Assessor's Parcel 016-490-50 and 038-730-37. Heather Edmondson, welcome back.
Good morning, Heather Edmondson for the record. You'll recall last board meeting, we came for public hearing to sell the parcels, and 2 of the parcels did not receive any bids at that time. The Pine Knolls property, which is 1.786 acres, and the Zero Cliff View parcel, which is 2.651 acres. So we did take the property back out to the market and advertise in the Reno Gazette Journal for 3 more consecutive weeks, twice a week. And the deadline was February 9th for any bids to be turned in for any other possible interest in the properties. And we did not receive any bids at that time. So I think today, as a formality, I don't know of anybody that's here for an oral bid, but if we could ask for each property, if there's anybody present that would like to present a bid, just in case.
Okay.
Record.
I see no one in the room, but is there anyone wishing to place an oral bid at this time? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board, and that is on either property. Okay, I see none, Ms. Edmondson.
Thank you very much. So the surplus property resolution states that if a property is not sold by the second meeting, that the board may elect to list the properties with a licensed real estate broker. So today, staff recommends that the board authorize staff to list these two properties with a licensed real estate broker and sell them at the best price offered to Tomah.
Okay,
Move to approve staff recommendation.
Second.
okay, I have a motion by Reese and a second by Doer. Before we take action, Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, Mr. Chair.
No written correspondence? Okay, all right, bring it back to the board. Motion by Reese, second by Doer. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you so much. Item number 8, water supply update. Mr. Hauk. We think you have some good news for us.
Right.
My yard's been wet. I'm gonna assume the hills are the same because they're very white.
Didn't come up, Sonia? Ah, great. All right. Morning, Mr. Chair, board members. So yeah, you're right. Got some really good news. I don't think I have to tell anyone in this room. It's been a really good winter. We had that series of atmospheric river events over the holidays and into January. Really kind of set the tone for the entire winter. We haven't had any major storms in some time, but what we have had is what I'll call little maintenance storms. And the weather's been cool enough to keep that snowpack, way up high in the mountains where it's supposed to be this time of year. As of yesterday morning, Lake Tahoe and Truckee Basin snowpack is about 180% of normal. That's kind of the theme throughout all of Nevada right now. All of Nevada is in really good shape. Look at the Humboldt, lower and upper Humboldt Basin's in really good shape as well. So this is a graph I like to peel off from the NRCS. If you look at the black line, that is this year to date. This is the water content of the snowpack in inches. And you can see, just for reference, compared to 2017, which is the red line above, we were actually ahead of 2017, which was our biggest snowpack year on record for some time. Right now, we're still in the same breath, but anyway, just a really good snowpack year so far for us. We're way above normal and way above where we were this time last year. The NRCS stream flow runoff forecast for both Lake Tahoe and Truckee River are, I would say, equally as impressive. The latest forecast for Lake Tahoe for water to come in between April and its peak looks like about 2.1 feet is the most likely scenario. If the storm gates open, we could get as high as 3 feet of storage, additional storage into Tahoe. And conversely, if everything shut off and we went to 60 degrees, we're still guaranteed about a foot of storage to come in. So in really good shape. And same theme for the Truckee River at Fairhead. Good flows this year, good flows this summer and fall and into next year. This is the hydrograph I like to show. This one shows the elevation of Lake Tahoe, the daily elevation for the last 12 years. And what's interesting to see, you can see the drought 2012 to 2016. You can see the big recovery year in 2017 where the lake rose 6.5 feet, how Lake Tahoe stayed full for 3 years in a row. And then the last 3 years where Lake Tahoe's basically been draining to make that required rate of flow at the California-Nevada state line, and the recovery projected this year. So by the time it's all said and done, Lake Tahoe should be about 3/4 full by July, which is really good news for our water supply. In fact, all the reservoirs on the system will make a noticeable recovery this year, if not full. Boca and Prosser reservoirs should fill. Donner and Independence Lakes, as typical, should fill. Even Stampede should get about 90% full, and Lake Tahoe, again, should get about 3/4 of the way full. So good news. This is a hydrograph I like to show, just showing again the variability in the Truckee River system. This one's for the last 10 years plus the projection for the upcoming year. And you can see the big flows we had in 17 and 19 and how the projections for this year kind of stack up. If you look really close, you might be asking why the projections for this year aren't bigger. Well, that's because most of the water that's coming into Lake Tahoe is gonna stay in Lake Tahoe. Only the bare minimum that's needed to be released is gonna be released. The rest of that is gonna stay in the lake and help recover from the last 3 years. So, this is just a close-up of that, just illustrating the fact that this will be our biggest runoff year out of the last 4. So this bar graph is showing storage on the Truckee River system as of yesterday morning. Collectively, between the 6 reservoirs, we're about 30% of capacity. Lake Tahoe is currently at 24% of capacity, Stampede 46, Boca 43, Prosser 33, Independence 76, and Donner 35% of capacity as of yesterday morning. So Lake Tahoe has a way to go, Stampede has a way to go, but Stampede should get about 90% full by July. And this is the graph you've seen a number of times before. As of yesterday morning, we had almost 58,000 acre feet of storage still under our management in the Truckee River system. Most of that water right now is in Stampede Reservoir under the terms of TROA. We have just a few acre feet left in Boca, and the water, privately owned water, we have in Independence and Donner Lakes. Right now, about 18% of what's up there is managed by TUMA. And this is set to change, with a year like this. I would suspect that by midsummer, we'll have over 75,000 acre feet in storage in the Truckee River system. So, just good news all around. This is a picture of Donner Lake Dam yesterday morning. So not only is there an abundance of upper elevation snowpack, this is what I would consider a lower elevation snowpack. This is actually elevation 5936. And you can ask the folks in Truckee, there's still a lot of snow up there. So just good news for the water supply all around, for fish, wildlife, M&I, and just everybody on the system this year. So just to recap quickly, chances are really good for finishing the year on April 1st with above average snowpack, which is right now about 180% to normal in both basins. Similar projection for runoff this year, 180% of normal. The elevation of Tahoe has already increased 1.78 feet since its low on December 1st. Another 2 feet projected to come. All upstream reservoirs expected to make a significant, if not full recovery, projecting normal flows this year and into next. Upstream reserves are about 58,000 right now. And this is really the kind of year we needed after the last 3 really dry years and the effect that's had on our supply and reservoir storage. So with that, I'll take questions.
Okay, what a great report. Christian, any questions?
All right.
It's a good day.
Yeah.
Mr. Halleck, thank you so much. Yeah, keep bringing back the good news and the cool temperatures. I think that's the key for us. Okay. That takes us now to item number 9, presentation of fiscal year 23, quarter 2 to date financial results. Mr. Bowman, welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This is the quarter 2 year-to-date financial results. Present this every quarter to you, check in as to how we're doing. Couple takeaways here. Outside of what I'll talk more about in the next agenda item with regards to power and chemical costs, everything else is looking pretty normal. I would say no large surprises other than that. So to start it off on the first page of the staff report, overall change in net position, or what you could think of as net income, we're $16.3 million lower than budget. There's a pretty big item in there, which is really just a delay of spending on the American Flat project. So the project work is just sort of moving back as we're in the design phase, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. That's really what's contributing to that kind of larger variance there, in addition to some other things. We'll go to revenue, which is on the second page here. Charges for water sales about 2% lower than budget. We had some summer storms in August, which caused water consumption to decrease a bit, and that's really what we're seeing there, about 2% lower. Nothing too significant. Next page, operating expenses. So The big thing to point out here is services and supplies. So that's the third line on here. You can see we're $1.9 million higher than budget. That's almost exclusively related to electric power and chemical costs, water treatment chemical costs. And again, I'll talk more about that in the next agenda item. Inflation is causing those items to increase quite a bit, certainly more than we expected, and that's why we're over budget in that line item and over budget in total operating expenses. The good news, if there is some, is that the other categories within our services and supplies aren't significantly over budget. Some are a little over, some are under. So really we can kind of point to those two items that are really driving that budget higher through the first half of the year. The next page is non-operating expenses and revenues. The biggest item here is a net decrease in fair value of investments. So as interest rates are going up, we have to recognize a loss on the financial statements related to our fixed rate investments. One of the good things to point out in an environment where rates are going up is because of our solid cash balances, we're actually making investment returns as we're able to reinvest that money. And so, you know, you could look at, we're subject to inflation, we're seeing higher costs across the board. But the nice thing is that with our cash invested, we're also realizing some returns as rates are going up. And, you know, we'll see what continues to happen with rates. I think it was a couple weeks ago, FOMC raised the federal funds rate again, 25 basis points. As expected. Chair Powell said that they expect to continue to do that throughout the calendar year. And I think we just had an inflation report come out yesterday where it was, you know, I think we're up 6.5%.
6.4 actually is what I saw. Yeah.
From a year ago, which is a lot, and it's about what they were expecting. So we're definitely not out of the woods yet. I'm kind of echoing Chair Powell's comments. So rate increases will continue. We might see some relief in 2024. So you'll notice interest expense, very consistent with budget, again, because all of our debt's fixed. So we have a pretty good idea of what that's going to be each year. And if we go to the next page, capital contributions, this is the last section of the income statement. This is what I mentioned at the start. The last line item there, contributions from other governments. You can see a big variance, $10.4 million lower than budget. That amount in the budget, $10.5 million, is reflective of City of Reno's 70% contribution to TUMLA for spending on the American Flat project. We're in the 30% design with that project still, so we're just sort of, things are just pushing out, probably a little optimistic in the budget as far as how far along that project would be. And the reason we have to recognize that revenue there because the asset will be constructed and we'll have a balance sheet addition when we're building the asset that'll be offset by this income statement addition. So it's kind of a confusing way to present it, but that's what that is. Other than that, the other items in this category, we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown in connection fees, but not a lot. It's still pretty consistent. So we're between all the cash connection fees within here, we're about $2.5 million lower than budget. Hard to say quarter to quarter because a lot of that you can have a big project come in and it can drive the revenue up quite a bit in any given quarter. Starting to see a little bit of a slowdown perhaps there, but not a lot.
Mr. Bowman, before you move off of that, are we still delaying connection fees until meter set?
Yes.
Okay,
Until when? I'm sorry, I didn't.
meter set.
Oh, yeah.
We did that a few years ago to try to help offset some of the major upfront costs. And it was, and the question, of course, was, and I don't want to get too far off topic here, the question at the time, which we discussed and decided it was a prudent way to go, was because it really didn't, it only affected TUMLA in terms of cash flow, not actual cost, because they weren't customers until meter set.
Yeah, right. So we are still doing that.
Okay.
And I know too, we were left with a bunch of credits too after the recession when that happened before, and it seems to work a little better this way.
And maybe at some point, board, we may want to revisit that to say, how is that affecting our cash flow, and should we go back to the original model? It's just it's not a question whether it's right or whether it's wrong. It's just it's something that we adopted at the time, and What we didn't do, sadly, and maybe happily on both sides, is we did not sunset it. And so when you take those kinds of measures, it was a learning experience for us. We had never been in that
Yeah.
territory. It was uncharted for us.
Yep.
Forgive me.
Yeah, no.
Please proceed.
The other thing I want to point out in this section is grants. So you can see we haven't recognized any grant revenue. We have $1.8 million budgeted through the first half. A little more than $3 million for the year is the total budget. We haven't lost any grants. It's timing. So most of these grants, the largest of which is a $3 million grant from the EPA for the American Flat Project, we'll likely realize that in fiscal '24. So that'll probably push out, but no grants lost in that regard. Then the last, I'll touch on capital spending, $15.3 million spent through the first half of the year. And then our cash position is still looking pretty solid, $6.7 million higher than at the beginning of the fiscal year, which is common through the first half of the year. That's when Toma collects most of its revenue from water sales. With that, I'll take any questions.
Yeah, go ahead, and then I've got a question as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ms. Brady.
So on the American Flat, Reno cut you a $10 million deposit for their contribution on that. Is that correct? That's hanging
No.
out there
Yeah,
from
so
them.
as we construct and we spend money on the project, we invoice Reno
Reno,
quarterly,
okay,
and then they
okay.
would pay us.
Okay, and the slippage of that, what you're showing on our balance sheet, at least it's some information, because I don't feel I'm getting it from Reno, is, and it does have policy ramifications. What is the slowdown? Is it engineers, can't figure out the design, or they don't have the design because they don't have the technical information that informs the design?
Yeah, I think, I actually think when we put the budget together, it was still very early on in the overall project. And so I think we were probably just more optimistic in where we'd be now. I don't think it's slipped that much. And I think we're going to see some ramp up in the project. I mean, over the next few years, certainly, but starting really in fiscal '24, we're
Yeah.
definitely going to see the project ramp up as it moves from 30% design into 90%, et cetera. So
Yeah, I mean, when you don't have a timeline, in a Gantt chart showing timelines, which Reno does not, for bringing on that 2 MGD, then it's, easy to slip deadlines because you don't have deadlines. But on the other side, you don't want a stranded asset. Reno's done the in-the-fence work on that, so I would call it a stranded asset, just like the Vidler Waters piped out their stranded asset. And there's pressure, of a lot of approved growth. And Reno has, nickeled and dimed it, let these people come on, but not set any policy framework associated with when are we going to close this thing up? Where are we seeing? And by the way, are we going to build a reservoir? Are we going to have water, out there? The Native Americans are trying to, get some of that effluent. It's just very unclear where that project's going right now. And, this is a good data point for me, and to hear, the understanding, since you guys are the lead on the One Water. So, I don't know. I mean, I think the technical people need to, when you see a
I wonder,
slippage that much, the
are we-
technical people should come forward and say, why is it
Styled-
slipped?
Are we styled to?
Let's not do that styled thing.
No,
Let's get
no,
information
no,
to
no,
inform
no,
why
no,
the
no, no,
budget's
no, Ms.
slipping.
Breckus, this is budgetary. And so, Mr. Folletta,
Yes, so, thank you, Chair. So it is itemized as a fiscal report, so if someone has something to say on the fiscal.
on the
as it relates
fiscal
to the
side.
Yeah.
fiscal side.
And look, and I'm happy to entertain bringing back an item where we talk about all these things, where we talk about the engineering. I'm happy to do that. But I don't want to get us into any trouble because I'm not trying to stop the conversation. And with all due respect, we have to be styled a certain way, Ms. Breckus, because the open meeting law requires it. And if we're going to talk about all the engineering, it has to be in a staff report and it has to be agendized.
So, okay, the $10 million, why is it slowed down? And are we augmenting on the 10 million?
No.
We're not augmenting, it's just factor. Okay, so when you close out the books in July, do you think you'll have that 10 million spent up?
No.
So let's try this. When will we spend up that? Because, from a budgetary position, if you got 10 million, you're just hanging out there, you're not budgeting right. Not good information to inform your budgets.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I'll say is next, the March meeting, we'll be presenting tentative budget and CIP. That'll be informing that as well into final budget in May, where we'll definitely have,
Yeah.
some better timelines too.
So when are we gonna spend the 10 million?
Go ahead, Mr. Enlow.
Thank you, John Enlow for the record. I could speak to the schedule because there is a very specific definitive schedule in a Gantt chart, just like you're speaking about, and we could share that with you, be happy to. The reason we are delayed a few months is because we brought the CMAR contractor on board earlier into the design process, so that took a little longer to basically interview and select and bring them on board. And they're working with the Reno and Ottumwa design team currently earlier in the process so that we're getting their input on design issues and cost considerations and so forth currently. So we will complete the 30% design, I believe, in March or April timeframe. And the plan is to have 100% design completed by April of 2024 with a 2-year construction period following that.
Okay, well, I'll look for that, and I appreciate that. April 26th to open up and start using the 2MGD at Reno Stead.
So initially, and I think we've discussed this, so there's, because of the advanced purified water and the regulatory processes associated with that, we'll start first with irrigation of the American Flat Farm, but that provides an outlet for Reno Stead Water Reclamation Facility for more treated effluent to go out there. There's just a process to go through, kind of starting up the facility, getting the biology going before we're even allowed to recharge it into the groundwater. But we're targeting April 2026 timeframe, that irrigation season, for Reno Stead to be able to move treated effluent out there.
But we're already have a pipeline out there and watering.
It's a pipeline from Swan Lake. So, sorry.
Let's stay on budget questions, please. I don't want to have to stand in front of the Ethics Commission. Okay. My question is on budget. Are we still on budget, and the timing in our budget for the Chalk Bluff hydro to offset the utility costs that are escalating in our budget?
Yeah, so the cost of that project has gone up from what we estimated.
Is it still within what we had estimated and the? I mean,
Well, and as far as the hydro project, because of rising electrical rates,
Right.
it absolutely pencils.
Okay,
Still,
good.
and I mean, that's part of the
And
benefit of
and I
that.
just want to make sure that it's still within what we budgeted and of course the offsets.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Commissioners, any other questions? Okay, I'm sorry, did you raise your hand, Ms. Hill? Oh, I apologize. Okay. What do you need from us, Mr. Bowman?
Just information.
Okay.
No action needed here.
Thank you so much. All right. That takes us to item number 10, discussion and action and possible direction to staff on the adoption of resolution number 313, a resolution to approve the first budget augmentation and budget revision for fiscal year 23. Mr. Bowman, you're still here.
Thank you. Yes, so this is a budget augmentation. As you know, we're required to prepare a budget. It's approved by the board every year. It goes to the state of Nevada as part of NRS 354, local government finance rules. If at any point we believe that we are going to overspend what's within that budget, then we're required to augment it as an enterprise fund, which Ottumwa is. It's a little simpler mechanism than perhaps other entities with multiple funds. We are required to have an augmentation approved through resolution by the board, and then we submit along with our quarterly filing to the state of Nevada. So that's what this is. So there's a resolution attached to this. This is related to our operating expenses, specifically electric power and water treatment chemicals. So a year ago, when we were preparing the budget, we underestimated the impact of electric power rate increases and price increases on chemicals, and that's why we're here. So if you look at attachment A1 within the staff report, that lays out the information. I'll talk about electric power first. So first of all, how does Tumwa use power? Well, we power our booster pump stations, our wells, and our treatment plants, and those are the biggest uses of power, basically moving water around, and we use a fair bit of power. So as you probably also know, NV Energy, there's been a lot of discussion lately about their rate increases, and there's really two kinds of rate increases that are impactful for Tumwa, and that's quarterly, what I'll call pass-through rate increases, where NV Energy is passing through costs that they're incurring to generate power. Most notably, it's natural gas. I don't know how many of you received an email from NV Energy as a customer last week, I think it was, and they kind of explained this, right? And that's Tumwa is subject to the same thing. And since April 1st, a year ago, those pass-through costs the rates have gone up about 35% for Tumwa. The largest of which was just this January at almost 15%. That's for Tumwa. That's in our largest rate class. Tumwa has various rate classes throughout our system, but that's the largest one, the most impactful. We also expect, from what we've understood from NV Energy, that we're going to see another 8% in April and another 8% in July. So this augmentation is considering that. In addition to what has sort of gotten more attention, I think, is the general rate case that NV Energy put through also in January. That's impacting Tumwa as high as 14% in those larger areas. So that's a lot. And because of that, we're estimating our total power cost to be $2.6 million higher than what we had in the budget for the fiscal year. So that's power. Water treatment chemicals, raw material costs, shipping costs, those have really ramped up as well. And I mean, price increases on our largest chemicals as high as 75%. And so our consumption has been a little bit higher this fiscal year. That varies year to year depending on turbidity in the water or what's going on as well. The other thing with water treatment chemicals, really since COVID, is there's been a lot of question around actual supply and being able to get the chemicals which we need to have to treat water. So our operations team, Will Raymond and his team have done a really good job keeping those supplies coming. A lot of communication with the vendors. We have backup suppliers in case we can't get a shipment. We've had to use them, but we've never run out or really come close to that. It's definitely nerve-wracking when vendors will tell you that they can't make a shipment, but we have redundancies in place, and we've been able to do that to keep water treated. So that's on the water treatment chemical side. So part of the augmentation is related to that as well. So the total augmentation is about $4.9 million for the fiscal year. Maybe a little light at the end of the tunnel. NV Energy has indicated that they expect potentially those prices to begin to come back down in calendar 24 is kind of what they're saying. And I think that was even in the email that they sent around. So those pass-through charges, they don't just go up, they also can come down. And so if they're spending less on natural gas, then they'll pass those reductions on to us. And I was looking at the price of natural gas the other day, and it definitely has been coming down. It's higher than historical averages, but it has been coming down. So hopefully we will see some relief there on the power side. I think we would see that too on the chemical side, just with shipping costs. I mean, you think about fuel and raw materials, and I think we would expect some of that to come down. So we're working through that right now with our budget process. So in March, we'll be bringing the budget to the board for approval, the tentative budget, and we'll be talking more about it there. I think that's it. This augmentation, it's going to be paid for through cash reserves. So that's, I guess, one of the good things is we do have a good amount of cash that we can weather these kinds of things that I really believe is, in a way, it's temporary. I mean, when we're looking at financial planning and decision-making for Tumwa, we're not we're not looking at necessarily a year-by-year basis. I mean, we're looking longer term and trying to use these current situations to inform those projections. But with, luckily with our cash balances, but also our ratings, we have access to capital if we needed it. And so, we're in a good position as far as that goes. We can weather these storms, get through them, and move on. So there is a resolution attached to this, so the recommended motion for the board is to approve that resolution.
Okay.
I have a
Mr. Deere, did you have a question?
I do have one, and I just want to make sure I understand. Where does our rainy fund day come in that we've created to help make sure for things like this? And when, if it's not now, when do we use that?
Yeah, I think this could be the kind of situation where we could use that.
What's in that fund?
It's about $11 million.
Okay,
And that is our rate stabilization fund that the board established a few years ago.
which will lead to my next question with respect to rates. But
Yes.
continue, Mr. Dare, if you have another question.
No, that's the main one.
Okay.
When we did this years ago, we're at a place where we're doing this.
No. I mean,
And
you're,
I'm just asking, making sure that we, at least to our constituents, put it out there what we're doing and why. But also for us, if there's a way that we are, and maybe it's wiser to use you're the financial guru, and so maybe this is the wisest use of our finances. But I'm interested, we did do that for a particular reason, and it seems like this could be it.
Yeah, and I'll say, as far as rate planning, that is kind of that longer term look, and that's we're working on it. Back in October, I presented our funding plan, and at that time said, our last scheduled rate increase is this June at 2.5%. Beyond that, we don't have anything scheduled, and so we're working on that plan. And in theory, yeah, we could look at the rate stabilization fund as a more of a one-time opportunity to maybe offset something there. So absolutely something that we can look at.
well, that begged my next question about, is this going to cause us for you to come back to us to say, look, we need a rate increase, another, whatever it is, 2% or 2.3% or whatever it happens to be. I don't know what the exact numbers are. But I do agree, and in fact, the same thought went through my head about the rainy day fund. Can we give direction today, Mr. Folletta, because we're talking about using cash reserves, can we use the rainy day fund to offset that? Is that something that we are in a position to do, or if let me just lay out a couple of different scenarios for you. If we say, yeah, we're going to move forward with this, then does Mr. Bowman bring back another agenda item next month to say, look, commissioners, we think that we could use, this does fit all the parameters of the rainy day fund. This is exactly why we set this money aside. And I will place it under rate stabilization. And so to help us to stabilize those rates and make sure that we don't have to put in an undue increase, because we can use that stabilization fund.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I think the question before the board is really the consideration of the resolution that staff has prepared. So we need to go up or down on that resolution, or take no action on it.
Right.
That would be an option too. If the board wants to consider tapping the rainy day fund in the service of rate stabilization, that should come back as a different, an independent item at the next meeting. But you
Understood.
could obviously set the table for that here today.
Okay, understood. Okay. Mr. Reese.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think, Mr. Bowman, ultimately, the question of whether to use that fund and do something different other than what's presented by the resolution, I think is something we can think about. But I am interested to know your thoughts. In the prior agenda item, you indicate our cash position somewhere in the $235 million range. So I don't think we're, for lack of a better word, we're hurting. So I'm not sure it's raining yet, is what I'm ultimately suggesting. I think I would like your professional opinion as a person closest to these numbers to help us understand. It appears to me that the resolution is the proper route to go, but I'm just trying to figure out what your advice is to this body.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the time to consider whether or not we use the rate stabilization fund is going to be when we come back with either the budget next month or also our rate plan over the next 6 months, because that's really where we're gonna set out what we want to do with rates going forward. So while this impact is hopefully somewhat short-term and these extremely high costs, that will have an impact over the next 5 years, just because you're spending an extra $5 million, you don't get that back. And so I think that would be the time to consider that, and that's something that we'll look at when we're preparing that, and potentially could use as an offset, because if this truly is a one-time or a short-term price increase, then I think it's the right opportunity to consider that fund.
Chair?
Hold on just a second, Mr. Dare.
Okay.
Mr. Anderson, and then you.
Just want to say thank you for presenting the information to us. I like the idea of a resolution, because one way or another, this is what we're experiencing in costs. And I just want to echo what Mr. Reese said. I think looking at the future, we're counting on you to tell us where to go. For the first time in my business, we're seeing the first of this year reduction in costs on chemicals, petroleum products, things like that. Something we haven't seen in 2.5 years. So my hope is that when we get together with you again, you're going, let's patch the system. We don't need to change rates, but I appreciate you watching this, and I like the idea of the resolution because the fact that we're there. So thank you.
Mr. Dare?
Yeah, and I'm comfortable with resolution. I just want to always wonder where we apply what we did. But the one thing to remember for all of us, that 200 and whatever $1 million, that's not just sitting there. That's there because that helps us with our investment and our level. Those levels have to stay at a certain place. So though it's not raining, and I agree with you, Councilman Reese, that we're not in trouble. However, if we're not wise and that thing dips, these guys are going to come back to us and say, oh, we got to protect our investments because we have to have so much in the bank. And so just the wisdom of the balance is just something for us all to remember. Am I correct, Mr. Bowman, on that?
That's right. That's exactly right. So we do have the board established sort of a minimum unrestricted cash reserve that we want to target, and you'll be hearing more about that as we're looking at long-term financial planning and rates, because that's something that we do want to maintain, and that helps us through these kinds of times. It helps us with any other surprises that come up, and so that is important. I mean, we do have some room to get to that point, but that's where this long-term rate plan and financial planning will come into play, because we'll be able to see over time what's happening to that cash balance as we move, and as we project things out. So,
Okay. Anyone else? So what's before us today is, do we approve this resolution? When you come back to us, let's talk about what our options are. Let's talk about how fast that rate stabilization fund would potentially be replenished, because we would certainly want to, I mean, that's the whole idea. You draw it down for a particular purpose and try to stabilize those rates, and then how fast can we replenish that so that we, again, can keep our rates relatively stable for our customers.
Yep, definitely.
So when you bring that back, let's make sure that we have all of that information.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I'm happy to make the motion.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve resolution number 313.
Okay, I have a motion by Hill, second by Mr. Anderson. Madam Clerk, I have no cards. Do we have anyone signed in for public comment? Okay, I will close public comment, bring it back to the board. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Bowman. That takes us now to item number 11, discussion and action on nomination and appointments of trustees to the Western Regional Water Commission, or the WRWC, from the Tumwa Board of Directors, following positions to fill vacancies ending March 31st, 2023, for a new 2-year term from April 1st, 2023 to March 31st, 2025. So I will read these. Item A, pursuant to Section 25(3), Section 25, Parent 3, Parent A of the WRWC Act, from the following list of qualified persons: Jenny Breckus and Devin Reese. Item B, pursuant to Section 25, Parent 3, Parent B of the WRWC Act, from the following list of qualified persons: Paul Anderson, Item C, pursuant to Section 25, Parent 3, Parent C of the WRWC Act from the following qualified persons: Alexis Hill. Section D, pursuant to Section 25, Parent 4 of the WRWC Act representing Tumwa as the successor of the South Truckee Meadows General Improvement District from the following list of qualified persons: Jenny Breckus, Megan Ebert, Miguel Martinez, Devin Reese, Hillary Sheevy, Kathleen Taylor, Michael Clark, Jeannie Herman, Mariluz Garcia, Charlene Bybee, Ed Lawson, and Diane Vanderwell. So before we completely open this up, Mr. Folletta, I think it will be cleanest because we do have A, B, and C, but I think we can take all of those as one item, or would you prefer us to take them? Because I mean, technically I don't see, as I read that, there are no ors.
Right, you can take them all together if you like, as long as the motion is clear when we get to the point of
Item D.
right, and voting on who's going to take which seats.
Okay, all right. Looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Hold on, Ms. Hill, I think you had your hand up.
Unless someone had to
Okay,
talk first.
go ahead.
No.
No, I thought you were waving at me. I apologize.
I move to appoint the current appointees for the Western Regional Water Commission Board.
Okay,
Second.
okay, so that includes everyone on this list. We have a motion,
At the bottom of page 2 on the staff report.
yes.
Happy to amend it to say, as listed at the bottom of page 2 in the staff report.
Okay. Okay, that's perfect. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
No.
And I'm looking for you down there, and I don't. My masked clerk.
Yes, keeping everybody safe.
It's all right. It's all good. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That takes us now to item number 12, discussion and action and possible approval of an amendment to the Truckee River Fund agreement with the Community Foundation of Northern Nevada with funding levels to be determined as part of the budget process each fiscal year. Ms. Folsom?
We didn't do D.
We did it all at once, Mr. Dare. We did A, B, C, and D as listed as the current members. And that was listed at the bottom of page 2 in your staff report.
Okay. Okay, then I'm sorry, I got confused on the D portion. Okay.
No, and forgive me, and Mr. Folletta said it was okay if we, as long as we called it out, and it was called out as the current members of the board.
Okay.
Are you comfortable with the vote? Because we listed you as an aye, would you like us to take the vote again?
No, I'm comfortable with the vote. My confusion came that A seemed like it was, no, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Folsom, item number 12.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sonia Folsom. Before you is an amended agreement between Tumwa and Truckee River Fund. So Tumwa and Truckee River Fund entered into agreement with, my apologies. Truckee River Fund, Tumwa entered into an agreement with the Community Foundation to manage the Truckee River Fund. That was in 2004, and there were two 5-year extensions, one in 2009, when the fixed term was expired, and then again in 2014 for another 5 years. So it expired in 2019, but the parties continue to keep the program alive through the continued approval of RFPs and managing the program. Before you have what will enter Tumwa and the Community Foundation into extend the term to basically in perpetuity unless either party decides to opt out and give each other a 6-month notice. And I have on Zoom Lauren Renda, who is the program manager at the Community Foundation, the executive director, and Eden Dunkelberger signed the amended agreement on Monday. So we just need the board approval. to approve the amendments, and we can continue with funding great projects. And with that, I'll take any questions.
You have a question, Ms. Practice?
Yeah, I generally do not support in perpetuity government contracts. I just have a real heartache with that. And so I don't know. I mean, they're acting more as a fiscal sponsor? Is that kind of what?
Correct. So the Tumwa Board approves through the budget the amount that is funded to the Truckee River Fund. The Community Foundation manages that program, and it keeps the separation of powers and keeps us, outside of influencing the RFPs and the decisions made by the advisory committee.
Yeah.
And when the last time the agreement was extended in 2014, that was for 5 years. And in retirements and switches, changes of who's on point with the Truckee River Fund, it got missed. Yeah. And I'll take responsibility for that because I've been working with the Truckee River Fund Advisory Committee and the Community Foundation since I started, and I missed that 2019 deadline to bring it back to you for another 5-year extension. And here we are with a, in perpetuity because it's a great program. We have, the advisory committee members are 100% invested. Unfortunately, with the loss of Chair Janet Phillips, that was a legacy and knowledge, and she chaired that committee very well. And she will be missed at our next meeting, which is this Friday. But Brian Bonifant is the new chair, and he is also invested and eager to fill the big shoes that Ms. Phillips left. But we have 2 vacancies coming at the City of Reno that they're not willing to appoint anybody until this agreement is amended or re-engaged, however you want to look at it. And, okay.
Any other questions?
Yeah, does the Community Foundation get a compensation for
Yes.
being the
so-
fiscal sponsor? How much do they get?
It's just administrative costs, and we get that.
Bill it to you.
Yes, yeah. And it comes out of the Truckee River Fund.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Tumwa doesn't
No.
pay for that directly.
Yeah, I really do think, I mean, obviously you had a 5-year and it kind of, got forgotten or whatever. But, those contracts in perpetuity, even things get stale, even who you send the notices to, as people retire. I just really think they're a poor practice in government. I've thought that for a long time. So.
Okay. All right, yes, Ms. Stewart.
Yeah, I would prefer to see a 5-year extension. And, just as, it's the same principle that we've discussed in the past is, periodically rebidding the process. And there are a number of nonprofits, and I'm not saying anything, again, like we've had discussion before. I'm not casting aspersions on them at all. I love the Community Foundation. But I think it would be a better practice to set a time certain, and 5 years seems fine, seems like a good time frame. And then in the interim, they may change their mission as well. I'd rather not just be at the whim, I guess, of what happens over there. I'd rather be affirmative in our decision-making. So that's my preference. It's not a hill to die on, but I bring the same philosophy to all of our contracts. And that's, whether it's here or City of Reno or wherever. So I would be less inclined to do in perpetuity.
Chair, can I?
Okay, yep, Mr. Deere?
And I get what's being said here. The only thing that I'd say though, and I guess we could go either way, but there's the ability for us to review this and just bow out and say we don't want to do it anymore. And so with that in place, this seems to be a better move because it keeps our staff moving forward, things are rolling. These guys have been proven. And again, there might be, I would even agree that there might be some groups that we would walk a little more cautiously with, but since these guys have been around for a long time. There's no question. And we can put on our thing of some revisitation on our end, but it doesn't need to affect it to the level of a contract, in my opinion. So that's just my thoughts. I get what's being said, and I don't disagree with some of the principles in there, but I think if this didn't give us the ability to bow out and us say this is not going the same direction, then I'd be concerned. But I have no concern given what's in here.
Thank you. And I will just chime in. I feel exactly the same way. We have a 6-month opportunity to nullify the contract, and that can happen at any time. And so I'm very comfortable with that. I'm also very familiar with the Community Foundation of Western Nevada. In fact, they administrate a grant that I established, the YES grant, which is Youth Engaged in Service. And Youth Engaged in Science. They've done a great job with the administration of that grant. They've been very frugal. They've just been very, very good. I have no issue with the way that they have administrated themselves throughout the community. I think this is a good thing. And if future boards feel that they want to bow out of this, they can do it just with a 6-month notice. So that's my opinion. Anyone else?
Well, I'll just,
Hold on just a minute, Ms. Breckus. Go ahead, Ms. Hill.
Oh, I'm just ready to make a motion.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, that statement I don't think is correct, that any board can make the decision to bow out in any notice. Is once you allow this in perpetuity, it's fully an administrative function. I don't know that a board would know, for example, that the admin costs for the Community Foundation have doubled, unless we're looking at the, deeply into the financials of the Truckee River Fund, which maybe one of their board members would be. So I don't think that's accurate. I think it really shifts a role over to staff and takes away, some oversight and accountability. And then, the statement, well, I know the Community Foundation, they've been great. That relationship-based, way of doing agreements, I really sour on that. And for example, Reno and I maybe some of the other bodies just had an agreement with a nonprofit that lost their nonprofit status. So who's checking that in 5 years? I don't know. I'm probably not going to support it just on consistency that I cannot support, no matter how endeared to some a counterparty might be, in perpetuity government contracts.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Stewart?
Yeah, I just want to be clear. You had made a statement, and I wanted to be clear about what I'm saying. I want to separate the quality of the Community Foundation, and I admire the board. I admire their administrator. I have the highest regard for them. I want to separate the qualifications of the administrator from the process. And so it's not about, well, if they're really good, then we can change the process. That's my distinction. And so I agree. I know you have a master's in public administration. I do, a number of us. Lexus, I think, maybe Denny. I mean, it's just a best practice to kind of do a sequential government procurement process. So that's just where I stand. It's nothing to do with the quality. I love these people. So I just want to make that really clear.
Okay, all right. Very good. Anything
Could I
else?
ask a question?
Please.
So going to Member Breckus and her comment about us not being able to see the administrative fees, I mean, it's a part of the budgeting process that we would be seeing on a regular basis from them. Wouldn't we be able to have access to that information and see if things are taking place both from Tumwa's side as well as a board side?
And when the Truckee River Fund comes before us.
Correct. And I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly that we're still going to have that same transparency, visibility going into the future, whether or not we approve this, right?
Correct. I get a quarterly financial statement of the administrative fees and costs. Ms. Renda's online if you wanted a more specific answer onto how they manage that. And the costs have been very minimal because they're very cognizant of the fact that they need to keep the majority of the funds for RFPs. And we, case in point, we had the recorder who did the minutes and the note taking, and she retired, and we hired a new person And that cost significantly went down just by doing it a different way. So instead of, off the top of my head, I'm not even gonna try to remember, but, you know, a few $100s every meeting, it's become now less, you know, less.
Well, thank you for the clarification, and I'm in support of this, so thank you.
Okay. Ms. Hill?
I move to approve the amendment and authorize the general manager to sign it.
Second.
I have a motion by Hill, second by Reese. Madam Clerk? Is there any public comment? I have no cards. Okay, we'll close public comment. We'll bring it back to the board. Motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, all of those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, motion carries 5-2. Okay, with Breckus and Dewar being in the negative. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Folsom. That takes us now to item number 13, the General Manager's Report. Mr. Zimmerman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two brief comments. First, you all saw the popular annual financial report. I want to give a huge thank you to Matt Bowman, Sophie Cardinal, the entire finance team and the communications team that put that together, because that's a real, not only a value to the board and other stakeholders, but just a value to the customers to see all the finances in a very succinct, easy-to-read format. So wanted to thank them for that. And then also, as you all know, the 2023 legislative session is well underway, and next month's board meeting, Steph Morris and Sonia Folsom will present the board with an update on the activities that we're watching coming out of the session. So look forward to that. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions for the manager? All right. We'll close item number 13. That takes us to item 14, public comment. I don't have any cards, Ms. Folsom. Is there anyone wishing to speak? We'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. Board comments and requests for future agenda items. We'll close item 15. Our favorite motion, well done. We did it in just slightly over an hour. We are adjourned.
Unbelievable.
Have a great day, everybody.